Harvest time. It brings urgency. Whether it's vegetables in the garden or fresh strawberries or fruit, or whether it happens to be corn and beans or hay, there is an urgency that comes with harvest time. Action is required, and there's a limited time to get the work done. So what would happen if we had that same urgency of harvesting the crops that were coming in and sharing God's faith, as if that harvest time of reaping the souls of people and sharing God's love with one another had that same urgency? If we were telling others about Christ as if Jesus was coming tomorrow, what would that look like? Just notice, Jesus was rejected in one Samaritan village last week, right? When we read the gospel, Jesus was rejected in that village. And what did Jesus do? Jesus went on to the next village. And now we find Jesus sending out his 72 people. Jesus and the disciples didn't pack up and go home just because they were rejected in this one village. No. Instead, Jesus sends out 6 times the number of people to prepare the way for him to be coming to those villages. 72 is what he sent out. And he sent them by twos. So there was not only urgency, but there was also a need for credibility. In those days, for something to be credible, it took a witness of 2 or 3 people, and that was in the biblical times. And much of today is the same. So sending 2 people out at a time gave the credibility of the message of Jesus as they shared it, but it also gave them more protection in the midst of some very rigorous and dangerous travel in those days. Even today, we send people out in twos. We send police officers. We send firemen. We send miners and astronauts, and we send kids and adults on mission trips as groups of people going out. Anyone working today with youth or children require additional adults. The list is endless. Jesus says the harvest is plentiful. Well, that's really great. We have a good harvest. If you're a farmer, you know what that is exciting about. There's a good harvest. That's great. So what seems to be the problem? What seems to be the problem? There's a shortage of workers. In 2007, I partnered with a congregation in West Fargo to start a second worshiping location. We began worshiping in a rented space on Sunday mornings, and one Sunday a woman came up to me and she made a whole list of things that we could do to grow the ministry. So I said to her, "This is great. So how would you like to help? What would you like to do?" And she said, "Well, I'm not good at that stuff. I can't do that." You ever heard that? It's easy to come up with a list, great ideas for ministry. But if we're not willing to put forth effort to be the workers, the harvest is going to be affected. So what hinders you as a congregation from gathering this promised harvest? Could it be that we as a church haven't tapped into the gifts of people that are willing to share their gifts? Or do we have a limited view on how to actually reach out? Or, as we sit in the pew this morning, Are we thinking, well, it's not my responsibility, it's the pastor's responsibility, or the church council, or the evangelism outreach hospitality committee, or it's the person that's down the pew for me? Look at that person. No, I'm just kidding. Or maybe we say, but I can't do it good enough. Guess what? God has equipped you and empowers you to go out and share the gospel. God will equip you. Jesus didn't say there's too few committees or believers. He says there are too few workers. We read from Galatians talking about doing good work. That's part of being a Christian. Workers imply involvement in an activity that involves effort. You have to put forth some effort. So do we wait until we have more workers? Absolutely not. But what Jesus says is pray for more workers to be sent. So as we go, as we are sent out, we are to pray that more workers will come alongside to help with the harvest that God has prepared. For more people willing to put effort into gathering that harvest. To not only tell others about God's love, but to show them God's love. Jesus' instructions to the 72 were pretty simple. He said, basically in English terms, in our terms, is don't let stuff get in the way. Don't let too many details bog you down on how you're going to do ministry, but just go do it. And then don't loiter or get sidetracked with small talk. This is important business. Stay focused on sharing God's love through actions and words. And remember, it's hazardous work. Sometimes you're going to be made fun of. Sometimes you might have the door shut in your face, but don't stop. Don't let that stop you. Keep going. Keep sharing God's love in very tangible ways with others. It's harvest time. People are longing to experience God's love in very tangible ways and to really come to truly know God. And above all, remember, you're not alone. God is with you, and the Holy Spirit will empower you and equip you as you go. So with little preparation, the 72 were sent to go and do. Notice the pretense in verse 8 and 9. Eat, heal, and tell. It implies repeated and continual action with the present tense. So learning as they went, the 72 continually served through giving and receiving, through eating and healing and telling. As sent people, we are called to be servants, to serve one another with humility and passionately share God's love through repeated and continual actions of kindness and love and words of encouragement. With little to no water coming in or flowing out of the Dead Sea, it is stagnant and dying. Without inflow, without learning and growing and receiving, we too will dry up. One definition of burnout is giving much more than you are receiving. On the other hand, all inflow with no outflow causes us to become stagnant and leads to death. A life-giving faith requires both receiving and giving. Through the inflow of learning we receive, and through the outflow of being sent to share God's love through actions and words, we give. There's a balance to all of that, and it's important. And so to help you understand part of that, we are going to play a giving and receiving game. Yes. And I'm going to ask the ushers to come forward now. And they're going to pass out little cups of jelly belly beans, all right? And in this mix, there are 41 different flavors. Now, you won't get 41. Everybody take a cup. Do not eat them now, all right? Don't eat them. Everybody's going to get a cup. And while they're passing them out, I'm going to give you some instructions. So when you get the cup, like I said, just hold it. Don't eat them. And then in a little while, I'll say start, and then you are asked to give and receive candy with people as many times as possible. As many times as you want, actually. So you are able to, if you're able to move around, go ahead and do that. Those that mobility is a little bit harder, invite people to come to you. Or you all pay attention to that. Then you're going to pour your cup from one cup to another. And don't use your hands, because we want to keep this a little sanitary, because you just might want to eat a few afterwards. All right? And then for 1 minute, as you give and receive candy, you cannot look the person in the eye. You can't say anything. All right? There's going to be no interaction. And then, after a minute, I will tell you that you can have conversation, you can look at each other in the eye, and you can interact with one another. Okay? Does everybody have a cup? Does everybody have a cup? This is responsive. All right. Okay. So, I'm going to get my watch, my phone, and we're going to set it for 1 minute. And your first instruction, it's about giving and receiving. So you're going to pour or share your jelly belly beans into somebody else's cup. So this requires some movement. Stopwatch, we'll set this for 1 minute. Oh no, we need a timer. That's what we need. Okay. Are you all ready? Any questions?
We don't touch them, do we?
Don't touch them. Yep. Just pour. You can pour as much or as few into somebody else's cup, or you can be the receiver of those jelly beans. Any other questions? All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Remember, you're not looking at anybody. You're not having conversation. No talking. Don't look at anybody in the eye. You have 5 more seconds. Okay, stop where you're at. Just stay right where you're at. All right. Now, this next time, you get to actually look at people in the eye. You can smile. You can engage with one another. Are you ready? Go. You can talk to one another. I'm going to ask you to return to your seats now. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Yes. I'm going to ask you to sit on down. Wow. Are you a better giver or receiver? Huh? Everybody shout at one time, whether you're a better giver or receiver. Shout, giver or receiver. 1, 2, 3. Giver. All right. Awesome. Was that fun? Was it hard to do it the first time, not looking at anybody or having conversation? Uh-huh. Was it a whole lot more fun the second time? Yeah, could you feel the energy in the room? Wow. So did you notice what happened when you started to interact? What happened? Huh? What happened? This is interactive. There was laughter. Yeah, there was joy. There was connections. There was relationships being built. Wow. Well, guess what? That's what God calls us to do. So how does this relate to the work of greeting one another, of connecting with people in our neighborhood and the community? Giving and receiving is all about being in relationship. We can collect food for the food shelf, for the food pantry, and we can give it, and that's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. But when we go and we serve at the food bank, when we interact with one another, that's much more, not only rewarding for us, but we get to give. We get to be that blessing. And then as we are that blessing, guess what? We get blessed in return. I know when I've gone and served, I'm thinking I'm going to go and I'm going to give and I'm going to bless people. And what happens is I actually am blessed much more. It's part of that giving and receiving. It gives life. How are you building relationships through the mission and ministries of First Lutheran? Steve Strogren, who started Servant Evangelism, founded Vineyard Church in Cincinnati, Ohio. He says this and believes this: small things done with great love change the world. He jump-started the church with kindness. The church grew rapidly from a handful of just a few people to 7,500 members in 15 years. With going out and doing acts of kindness throughout Cincinnati, it changed the dynamics of the city. Cincinnati was rated as the third most unfriendly and rude city in America. That changed after 15 years of going and serving about 12 million people with small acts of kindness. Servant evangelism connects people to people in very real, easy, low-risk, high-grace ways. So what about? You got a lot of lakes around here. You got a big beach just in downtown Detroit Lakes. What about a group of you getting together, buying some water, making sure it's cold, or Diet Coke, or whatever pop, and going to the beach and handing out some cold water and pop on a hot day? Huh? Wouldn't that be kind of fun? Just like your giving was just a few minutes ago? There's something about small acts of kindness. They nudge a person closer to God, often in a very profound way, as it bypasses the mental defenses. And the average Christ follower is willing to take a low risk by handing a stranger a can of cold pop or water on a hot day. The high grace is seen in a typical reaction by, oh, thank you. This is so nice. I can't believe this is free. And why are you doing this? Kindness builds a bridge for people to receive a touch of love from God. It's all about giving, receiving, and interacting with others. It's simple, it's practical, it's effective, it's inexpensive, and it's fun. So are you ready for a priceless experience? Do you want to learn more? Check out the Steve Sjogren's website, kindness.com. Actually, to make it simple for you, I put a little label on the cup. So later on today or wherever, this week, check out. There's 2 websites and learn more about opportunities that you can share God's love in a very tangible way and yet a very effective way. A life-giving faith requires both giving and receiving. And together, we are called and sent to this community to make a difference here in Detroit Lakes. Yes, I know I'm here this Sunday, but we are all called, wherever we are, to show God's love in tangible ways. And as we do so, as we demonstrate God's love, you are all going to make a difference in this community for Christ. Small things done with great love can change the world, can change Detroit Lakes. Jesus sent 72 to just go do it. It's harvest time, folks. It is. There's an urgency. The time is now. Go, empowered by the Holy Spirit, to just do it. And oh, by the way, don't be afraid of making mistakes along the way. This is exactly how we learn. So go share God's love. Amen.